I think the mode of response is we respond to the key questions. Each pillar has one. So let's work out this. If we are three, if we did 15 minutes, that's 5 minutes. We have 15 minutes to open. It's now 5 to. So let's give ourselves up to 12. So then you end up give yourself 12, 15 or 10 or less. If you do less, the better, so that you have an open.
Do you want to say that, Dr. We had talked with we realized that these questions were targeted at the program people, but we thought that the people who don't, Roy, Lisa, can be our sounding board of sorts. So, for instance, you can, after we've done our usual program stuff, you can either tell us how the different, just focusing on the questions, how your different whatever departments can support the program, because this is really
I was looking at the way you structure the questions, the headline. So first, general comment on what I understand of change, the achievements, challenges and lessons, opportunities, and what is the long-term impact of what I have been doing. And then I just added another one of recommendation for future activities or fundraising opportunities, something like that. So because we are in Utetes, we have now participatory team, so too we are the solution and so on. And the accountability we spreading all of us, so it's a bit of Tanzania, a bit of Adelisha, a bit of Paris. So I will not talk about so too we will talk about that, and then Patita, PB. I will just want to focus mainly on SOA and generally on the interactions between Fahamu and the other organizations working on AU matters. I think to start with change, for me change is it may be difficult to see change happen. How does change happen? But I think I would say change is happening when ordinary people start a process of looking for solutions. I will back that with many examples that we have in history where, and it's natural, if you have a comfortable position, we don't want to change it, but the reality is that the fact that we have someone who lives on the minimum possible, or someone who cannot eat twice a day, just once in 2 days, another one who eats 5 times a day. If you were that one person eating 5 times a day, what will make you give out those privileges and then start eating once a day or once in 2 days? What reasons can push you? How would you give out those privileges? It's a natural thing we have, any individual, or just look at any comfort you may be having. Because every time you fight to keep at least the way it is, at the best you improve it. There is no way you think of a day or bringing down your comfort. Basically, change for me would be that then it's this process which tries to get you who is living beyond the means to come down, so that the one who doesn't have anything can come that way. So it hasn't happened where someone who is in a comfortable place can come down. And people probably I'm saying it now, someone may be looking at me and then say, oh, this guy is in a very comfortable position and he doesn't want to go down. In my view, I'm saying probably there is no down I can go further because this is the thing the minimum. So if you look at that way, that human nature always wants to stay in a comfortable position. But many statistics show that if everyone were to live as a Scandinavian, for example, you live as someone from Denmark, the planet does not have enough resources for us to live like any other individual in Denmark or in Sweden, because the resources are not there. So what would equality would mean is that the Scandinavians will have to come down, the Americans come down, the Westerners come down, and then some of the African, Latin Americans, and Asians then reach them in the middle. And that one, it's very hard. It's a hard process that you go down so that someone can come up. So it has been always those who think they are marginalized, who think they should have a better share of what the resources, who always initiate that process. And sometimes it has been possible because some of the world of people sympathize with others and then start supporting those who want to see their levels come down. So I'm just generalizing, but if you go into different specific cases, that's how. So when those who are feeling marginalized start coming and then they get some support, solidarity from those in the other class, that's how. You can see in so many societies, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, here, all these, that those who have more have refused to come. Then, on SOA, for me, one of the, I think the achievements is that to have been part of a continental campaign. This movement, which and especially for the SOA coalition, it has been very dependent on organizations, women's organizations, pushing for the status of women on the continent to be lifted. As an individual, not only representing Fahamu and the SOA coalition, but also participating in various campaigns. For example, when we go to Addis for these meetings, what we do basically, most of the times we just go and meet a delegation from a country and asking why women in your country should be treated as the way. I don't usually use equality, but I think what I believe in and then what I use and I've been saying is just allowing everybody to be what they can be. There is no single day people will be equal, but don't prevent someone to reach where they can reach. Even men are not equal. Male people, male are not equal. But I think what is discrimination is saying, because you are you can't reach this one. Because you are a man, because you are an African, because you are a woman, because you are an Arab, you can't reach. But if you let everyone work on the same parameters, then you are not discriminating. I think one of the challenges is that many African countries do not want to allow people to work on those equal parameters or no discriminatory parameters where everyone can be allowed to achieve what they want. You'll see it from my grandfather and others will say, okay, you the boys, you can go to school, and then the kids, the girls will do this and that. So that, I think that cultural background or blocking factor is the one which has been there. But another one is when you are a man and you are going around running, talking about these women things with other People will say, are you crazy or what do you? But I say no. But look at female people who are important in your life, starting from your mother, your sister, your wife, your girlfriend, your fiancé, whatever. How do you want those special women in your life to be treated? And those ones, then that has been my philosophy. If those special women, how you want them to be treated is the way all these other women should be treated. A lesson, I think, from this interaction on SOA, but also on other legal things around the African Union. One of the things I see that is we still have problems of defining what Africans want and how we should arrive at that. I give an example. The African Union says we are people's body, we are an African independent body. But who funds activities of the African Union? That has been, when you asked Siena what the first progressive thing, for me which came in my mind is financial independence. Because we don't have, it's an illusion to say that we're celebrating 50 years of independence. And all our activities are not funded within the continent. That's one of the blocking mistakes that we have. That when we go and we talk about all these things, we say, okay, we Africans, we want to do this, we want to put this percentage on agriculture, put these things on democracy, blah, blah, blah. All these are good documents that Africans came up with. But the implementation, as long as it's not financed by Africans, it doesn't have any meaning. Because we sit in this room and there is some guy from the Oxfam, Novi, Dutch, listening, and they are saying, okay, just say what you want, but I know after this. Yeah, because we don't, that's one of the sadness about the job, because we can't finance it. And I was wondering, if we are a billion people, the AU only has a budget of 300 million, excluding all these peacekeeping missions here and there. A billion people, everyone giving 300 million US dollars per year, just for the secretariat to pay all these activities. That's around, you want to see in shillings?
Yeah.
Shillings,
So let me know.
it's around 4 billion in a shilling. Then, so the lessons, part of that category of lessons,
300 million.
300 billion US dollars, so that's 4 billion.
That's 4 billion.
So, why can't, if I am asked to give 100 US per year as if I will give it to the African Union, another one may say I will give $1, another one may give 10, another one will give 1 million, but at least being able, so that's one of the biggest challenges of working on African Union things when we can't finance. And then it comes down to the member countries where the priorities we have make us not finance our budget. Kenya, for example, the taxes, PAYE from everyone here is enough to finance the government. But the priorities, we got it wrong, starting from the highest salaries, from arms that we don't need, from security that we don't need. For all these things wrong, priorities make us that Kenya is not able to finance its budget. Therefore, we are not able to contribute to the AU's budget. Another one is, I think probably, how many minutes I have? 2 or 3? 5. Another one, I think probably we'll talk about it when we talk about Pan-Africanism. I think it's these issues we have, or I'm focusing on working on these AU protocols. The other challenge we have is we still have multiple levels in us as Africans. So you see yourself as Kenyan, but then you see as actually a Kikuyu, a Luo, a Kamba, whatever. And then, so once you are in that small tribal thing, and then you see as a Kenyan, you see yourself as a Pan-African later at level 10. So how do we say we work on these things, African Union things, whereas we still have our own divisions? So we have to remove all these tribal things and divisions, and then we see us as national and Pan-African. Because if we believe it or not, we cannot have this continental integration that we keep on saying if we still have our individual divisions in Kenya, in Burundi, all these small divisions which cannot make us into one bloc country and then start negotiating with other countries. The last challenge for me would be that as an African Union, it's just a body that creates guidelines, creates frameworks, and then everything comes to member states to implement. So if the African Union says give 10% of the budget to contribute to agriculture, if the African Union has said put a framework on land issues, Kenya has already done the first step of having a land commission and a land policy framework. Then those guys sitting at the Secretariat of the African Union are not the ones who are coming to implement, but the Kenyan government is in charge of implementing that. So that's another one that we talk about things which almost appear abstract, because those frameworks, if member countries don't want to apply them, they will be meaningless. I think there are opportunities that when we have these leaders which are emerging, who may, in their selfish interests, talk about Pan-Africanism, Africa solidarity, but at the end, if that rhetoric keeps on coming, probably people will start seeing that, okay, Ruto may say Pan-African because they have their own reasons, but I think if that rhetoric keeps on coming, then we have something positive. The same as Museveni, Mugabe, Kagame, and others. But as if that keeps on coming, then we have an opportunity of actually raising the awareness of people to see, okay, probably if other continents are strong because they are united, then as we can be stronger as well if we are united. One of the long-term impacts, I probably give one example. One lady, I think George may know, we met when we were doing these SOA things. Just on a one-off, we thought it was a one-off meeting in 2010. And then this lady was very innocent at the beginning, but later on, she was just keeping, oh, this is what we are doing, sending an email. And for her, she didn't want to have this meeting of all the women and then just go. Send an email, oh, if we have done this here, we have done this here. After we finished this training, I actually had an interview on the radio, and which was true, she wasn't lying. And after that, she kept on getting engaged in various activities with Fahamu. Now, apart from being one of the networks in SOA, she's very much involved in the solution. And so one thing that we started as just a one-off meeting, it evolved into a long-term partnership, not necessarily on SOA, but also on We Are the Solution. And even now on the AU things, when there's an opportunity just to come in and just try to internalize how, for her, she takes it as a women thing. But I think, okay, if there's this protocol on women, it's not only women in Cameroon, but probably something which is general to all women in Africa. So just was an example of how you may start something which is small, you don't even think about it, but after 3 years, you find it that you have had some impact on what you did, keeping someone in the network, but also, if you will, opening doors for that person to reach other. And I think that's what Fahamu is, if you can do something, but also breeding, connecting people, allowing them to be network. And I think The network that she has now, after that 2010 meeting, it has been very huge on people she has been able to meet. Just that one example. And I think I will.
I'll be a bit more specific. As you had when you started, since he's the boss, he's giving me the overall. So I'm going to give it a bit more specific to my program and to myself. So, theory of change. How do I think change happens in Fahamu? For me, when I think of that, I think of the end result. What are we trying to do? And so, for me, what we are trying to achieve again, like I said in the last session, is political consciousness of our people. And how do we do that? And now that will help me think through theory of change. I think of Fahamu as a hub, as a one-stop shop for social movements. What do I mean? We provide literature that helps build political consciousness. The individuals that work here, I would want to think, are politically conscious people, and as a result act as a resource to the movements whenever they need us to provide that kind of support. So for me, the link, we act as a link between a lot of issues that the social movements are working with, the link between those issues and the, what can I say? The awareness, I hate that word, the political consciousness that is necessary for every African for us to bring the change that we want to see, for us to bring the unity that we so crave as a continent. So for me, those are important things that I think about when I think about what should Fahamu's theory of change be. What inspires me while I work here? A lot of things inspire me while I work here, but more specifically, what inspires me is being able a very diplomatic way of putting this. What inspires me is being able to interact with people I would otherwise would never had an opportunity to be with. The Fahamu members of staff, but more specifically, the communities that Fahamu enables me to interact with. Because when I say I work for Fahamu, that already opens a lot of doors. A lot of people will come to me by the mere fact that I work for Fahamu, and that sort of even when things are really bad inspires me to keep staying on. And achievements, Fahamu's overall achievement. For me, Fahamu's overall achievement is its ability to maintain the contact it has with the communities. Its ability to maintain the open doors policy. But more specifically, how Fahamu, and maybe it should come at the impact part. Everywhere I have worked, I have been unable to pick a specific thing which I can credit. We say as NGOs, as organizations, as civil society organizations, the successes can be credited to many achievements, many engagements by many organizations. But very specifically, when I look at the people I have gotten the privilege of interacting with since I came to Fahamu, when I look at some of the communities people who we have interacted with, in 2010, putting LGBTI people and Bunge people in the same room was a recipe for disaster. You could be sure what watatoka hapo kama waongeleshani. Right now, we see people organizing by themselves, we see them doing their own thing, and to me, that is what Fahamu is about. Those kinds of linkages, the kind of understanding that we've brought, no matter how small that crowd is, to those kinds of community guys. Program achievement. I think my program achievement would be how we were able to transform information we collected from communities, transform that to a project that would benefit the same communities. That for me was quite an achievement, because very many workshops happen in this country, very many meetings happen, but I wonder how many actually are able to take the information that they collect, see it, think through, and say, oh, we can come up with a program that responds to a certain need. An individual achievement. That would be, it's difficult to say individual. Everything is collective. But I would say being able to implement a project I have always, for as long as I've worked for civil society, wanted to do, even when I didn't know how that would be done. So for me, that is a great achievement. But also learning to take internal feedback from my colleagues and being able to channel that into something useful for the work that I do. Lessons learned. What lessons have you learned from intervention in your program? A lot of lessons. One, that I'm more needed out there than I am in here. And so I can spend 9 hours, 12 hours in this office, but at the end of the day, I am more useful to Fahamu outside those doors than I am inside the space that is our office. So that for me has been a lesson that has come at some cost, but a lesson all the same. What lessons were learned from the challenges? What were we thinking? So, challenge, for instance, that I would have, maybe I should have stated a challenge before I say a lesson. The challenge for me has been the shifting thinking that I see in Fahamu, which is Paul. Sorry, Paul, but I'm going to say this. The end of last week, we were talking about something, and Paul said that now I am happy where I am because I'm congratulated a lot on every email I send. And I told Paul that I have realized the more emails I send, the more people think I'm working. Well, in the real sense, that could be the utmost garbage of the century. It's good for documentation, but emails should not be evidence of someone's hard work. I think there was a point in Fahamu where I really trusted that everybody had the community's best interest at heart. Everyone in this organization came because we could all get UN jobs that way, but everybody is here because Fahamu gives them an interesting space to implement their deepest, you know those things you dream about and nobody ever lets you. It's like a bank. You go and borrow money for the wildest project. So Fahamu for me, I always thought for all of us was something we did because in the deepest convictions, this is what we think is the best we can do to our societies. So the challenge for me is seeing the shift to now being more office focused, the more paperwork I produce is the more harder I work. So for me that has been a challenge. Anyone who knows me knows that I am not all for put a placard and say yes. So and that's why I say the lesson that I have learned and I am learning to balance a bit is that I am more required by Fahamu out there because of the communities that I'm required in here. And so now for me the balance is, and how I have learned is how do I balance what is required of me physically at the office and what I must do to deliver not for Fahamu specifically, but for myself as Patita and for the communities, because I don't do this because I work for Fahamu. I do this because it's what I want to do. How are the challenges overcome? I'm still in the process of overcoming a few challenges. One being, how do we as Fahamu tackle the issue of an individual versus an organization? Hakima left. Did some communities lose trust in us? Patita will leave tomorrow. Will some community people stop coming to Fahamu because Patita is no longer here? So for me, how do we make our work much more Fahamu as opposed to individuals? Because at the moment I feel like we engage some people because of individuals, which is not bad. There's a way you create rapport with some people that you don't. But how do we? And this I only realized after a few of the people we work with left. That is when I realized, oh, we are as bad as Kenya Human Rights Commission, because the moment Minor TI left, we stopped seeing a lot of the activity that we're seeing. So for me, the challenge is, how do we make our programs so how do we move away from individual focus to organizational focus, so that there is always a carry forward? When so and so is not here, something will keep going despite the fact. Opportunities, numerous opportunities, but which ones can we build on? At an organizational, at a program level, I would say my engagement outside of Nairobi, which was something I had always said I would do from the moment I joined Fahamu, is an opportunity for us to build stronger networks with groups outside of Nairobi, but also that Eve and I and Famara are working on something, which is how can we see some of the things that are happening in the Kenyan office and in the Dakar office sort of interchanged. So Famara and I might be, if all goes well, might have an exchange program, because Famara is very interested in doing PD in Senegal, and like she was saying, I am very interested in seeing how we are the solution can be done here, because we have been unable to mobilize women farmers. I'm not even going to say farmers, women farmers, because everybody knows down there ni hao kina mama ndio wanakuanga na hizo majembe. So how are we able to organize politically conscious women? And I am amazed at how the Senegal office has been able to do it. And so we are working on that, and that is an opportunity that I hope we can build on as Fahamu in general. What are the signs that Fahamu, more specifically, as Fahamu, I had already stated one impact which I think all of us have contributed to, which is if they shut down Fahamu today, we can actually pick a few individuals, networks that we can say, if it wasn't for Fahamu, this would not be happening. So every now and then, like we wrote on our email, that's one of those things you need to pat your back on. You know, we can proudly say that we have created some sense of consciousness among some people who would otherwise would not have had the opportunity. At a program level, and this could also be at an organizational level, I think without knowing, Fahamu has built a lot of women. I see the Mombis of this world now, women who would not speak outside their community environment, now speak up at national forums. Well, there's an extreme to everything, but the fact that they have acquired the courage to do certain things, for me, is quite an impact for us. Because as much as we cannot claim 100% of the, yes, but we could be responsible for, noting a few individuals and saying, you know what, carry the agenda forward, you speak best. Based on the fact that Fahamu does not really speak for communities, but we let them speak for themselves. The fact that they are now able to stand confidently and say a lot of things for themselves without Fahamu's intervention for me.
A lot of really wanted to say. We've been working closely with Pratik, so a lot of our thoughts are also my thoughts. How does change happen through Fahamu's interventions? Yeah, I feel almost the same as Pratik. I think Fahamu is some sort of incubator, some sort of brewing area where people who are already willing to do something come and get inspired, come and get knowledge, come and get strategies, to go ahead and do that. So I think Fahamu is a space, and we provide this space to people who are inclined to bring social justice or to work towards social justice. So I think that is how Fahamu's intervention work to bring about social justice. What inspires? I would say a lot of things. I think initially my inspiration came from the interactions with the staff, like particularly Hakima, Firoz, and the rest. And through that interaction, I got some political consciousness, and I started to see injustice all over because they exist all over the place. I started to see the unfairness, what Eve was talking about, that these people in this planet who live off the misery of others. That I think it was Tajuddin who said we would require 7 more acts so that we can all live like Americans and drive 10 cars and so and I think there's a story I got from someone that if imagine a world where there's only a society, this is now the whole art world, there's only one well, and we all take water, so we all need that well to drink water. But this well is owned by only one person who we have to do something for. We have to pay him or whatever to get that water. And there's no reason other than just because we all agree that he owns the well, that he should own it because he didn't come with it. It's just there. Like all the resources in the world, they were here for all of us. There's no one who came with the land and the water and whatever. So there's no reason why there should be all this unfairness. So I think stories like those, and just your mind opening up and thinking about that, and thinking about how specifically Africa has been exploited and oppressed, and African people have been exploited and oppressed. I think that is what makes me do this. Achievements. So overall for Fahamu, related to how change happened, I think Fahamu has really functioned as a very accessible space for activists, for social movements to come and build themselves through us. Program achievements. SOTU is still very young, but I think we've achieved some things. One, I think we are building buy-in from others. It's not an asking. We are constantly in communication with all the activists we are working with, we are consulting and they are consulting and we are building this together. So I think that is the greatest achievement so far. It's that we are working together and people feel that they own this process. And I think if they feel from the word go as we start that they own it, then it will become self-sustaining. Which is a good thing. Individual achievements. This are difficult. So, but I think so far I've been able to work with several of my colleagues to build this process, this sort of process. So I think the fact that we haven't been fighting, that I think we've been working well. That I think is an achievement. I think the lesson we have learned in SOTU so far is that we need to focus. We need to focus the whole process. Because land, when you say you're dealing with land injustices, then you're dealing basically with everything in Kenya. You're dealing with all injustices in Kenya, including drug abuse, including HIV and AIDS, include everything you can think about. Every social ill, every injustice you can think about, you can tie it back to land, to the dispossession, to the poverty, to the economic oppression, to all these things lead up to somehow to land. So I think we need to find a niche area, and I think our niche area is working with activists on the ground, grassroots voices. Because I think a lot of policy work, like you said, has already been put in place. What needs is implementation. And I think implementation comes from the voices down there, not up there. Challenges. We are still at the beginning, so we haven't had, I wouldn't say we've had any major challenges, other than things that are administrative. And I think you say that's alone. But I think it's because we anticipate, we constantly anticipate, and but moving forward, I'm sure we'll face some challenges worth highlighting. Okay. It says we are not agreeing. Opportunities. There's numerous opportunities, many opportunities. But I think the opportunities we need to build on is maintaining the contacts that we are constantly making. I think we need to maintain them. I think we need to make them feel, as I said, make them feel part of the process. And I think we should get buy-in from them. Because we are making good contacts, we are talking with people who are listened to, with people who are out there who we think can be able to carry this struggle. So I think that we need to maintain that. We need to maintain them. Yeah, I think within a very short period, we've already been able to build a network of some organization and activists within SOTU. So I think that is a sign that we're having, it's not really impact on the ground, changing lives of people, but it's impact on the work, on the process, on the work that we're doing. So yeah, I think what this will lead to, eventually, what we want, which is actual life changes in life of people. So
Not being here too long. When it comes to the change, theory of change, how do you think change happens? Through Fahamu's interventions. I thought, as much as Fahamu is out there and advocating for social justice and everything, we can do all that, but if the individual themselves do not actually take what we're saying think, reflect upon their life, nothing will happen because you'll just be preaching to deaf dogs, basically. So I wrote, rather, I was thinking self-realization, self-determination, self-action, and modesty. Modesty because sometimes you can want to change the world, but at the end of the day, you can only do so much. So I mean, it's positive when you do the much you can.
Self-realization, self-action.
Self-determination.
Self-actualization.
Self-realization, self-determination, self-action, and modesty. What inspires me to work in Fahamu? I can say, well, the debates that we have in the office. Sometimes people debate on things I have never had, and it pushes me to actually research. And once I have researched, you can actually take part in the conversation and have an input. I like the hands-on experience because it's not always on the computer and things. I mean, you actually go and participate in all these meetings and just have an input that will probably change someone's thoughts and possibly actions. Mistakes inspires me because you learn to be a better person, and also feedback. Fahamu's overall achievements. I was going to say what you said about Fahamu is still here after the whole incident with Rose leaving and all that. And I mean, obviously we are growing in terms of having new people. So it's a good thing. Program achievement. I can't say much for PB because we've not really worked together as much. And I can say much on SOTU because tukona Paul sana. And I can say our achievement, we've had successful meetings. All the meetings we've planned, there's been very good attendance. People are so hungry for action, and sometimes we have to cut the meetings short because we can't continue till midnight. And it just shows that people are willing to go out there and bring change to the society. So that's a good thing. And also, we collaborate and we cooperate with these people. So I guess this is an achievement because we still have them for future meetings. So it's an achievement. Individual achievement. But for me, this is a learning experience because I believe we all learn. We can never stop learning. So it's a good learning experience. I learn something new every day. It's what we do in this office is very applicable in my school work, which is good because sometimes I look like a chop in class and I'm like, I say things. Yeah, so I'm really happy that it's what I'm actually studying in school, so I can apply it vice versa. I mentioned office debates and interaction. Sometimes we get so noisy, but it's good because it keeps the fire burning. And also another achievement which is a bit interesting was when we went for the planning meeting. I'd been here for less than a week. Then he told me to go and rapporteur. So I went to rapporteur for a meeting. I don't know anything about Fahamu. I know just very basic things. And when we were in the meeting, I told Eve, can Winnie help me? Because they're mentioning and then guys are even abbreviating TPZ, WF. So I kept on asking, I was writing notes to Winnie, I'm asking, what is this? So I got so frustrated, I just asked him, can Winnie help me because I'm so lost. She told me, you do what you can and we'll help. So that kind of pushed me, and I managed, and I learned so much from that because it gave me the background that I have taken so many days to research on, so that was an achievement. Then lessons learned from the program. I think Paul has mentioned most of them, but we keep on learning every other day. And give an example of the SOTU meeting we had for women. We work with a budget, and suddenly one of our participants comes with her husband. So we were all shocked, and the hotel is calling us asking what we do, and we somewhat forgot to factor in the fact that she's from Garissa, as in a strict Muslim society where a woman can't just travel to the uniform. She has to go with her husband. So we obviously had to, cater for that. So those are the few little lessons we learned from that. Well, challenges, I don't know. Sometimes you have to learn to be patient with people because people have different cultural backgrounds of living like you do. So it's patience pays generally. How have you overcome that? Just patience.
Being
Yeah,
patient.
being patient. Just let someone talk, see what it is. Yeah, it's a virtue. Yeah. What opportunities exist that must be built on? I think just applying the recommendations we get. We try our best in the SOTU department. We try to listen to what these guys say. Like when we had a meeting with our second meeting, we had only 2 ladies in the meeting, and they really complained, the sexual imbalance in the room. So we definitely took that recommendation, and we had a meeting specifically for the women. They also had very many things to say about the land injustice. So I'd say the opportunities are just too many to discuss in this forum, but anyway. Yeah. What signs, if any, that Fahamu, or more specifically the program, has had an impact? I can say the expanding network, because we keep on, like now we've had small meetings, and now we are planning big stakeholders meeting with 100 participants. So, and our usual participants have gone to look for more activists to invite for this stakeholders meeting. And in fact, others want to invite more than we can handle. We told them each to 2, others sent 7. So it's interesting, but it's good because we're expanding our network, and that shows we're important in the land struggle. And we're there to be passionate, so we get to do that. And also just the interaction in our sessions, because it's so vibrant, and sometimes we feel bad because we can't host a meeting for a week because so many people want to say so much. So I think that's just a sign that our program definitely has an impact.
I think we have been asking where can we improve the program, and I think the essence of this meeting was like appear very honest. And I think we have been giving ourselves a green card. Like this, all our doing some training. Is there an area that you feel the program needs to maybe improve further? And something that they are on their neck slide.
To me, it's not about improvement, maybe opportunities. Like the Kenya Lab is doing digitization of, they are trying to develop an ICT program for digitization of land data and all that. So it's something that sort of can build on that. Also there's an open data thing. I think there's some statistics that can be of help to the work of Utetesi.
Does it still work, the open data?
Yeah, it still works. So it's not a lot of information in it, but it's still an opportunity. Also, and the government and the new constitution and the new governance. So there, I think there are opportunities which you can try as you are doing with the PB. So I think it's just exploring the new upcoming emerging projects by the government so it can be.
I think this is the feedback I've gotten from our constituents. We all noticed that some things didn't go right. For instance, we had T-shirts, we had placards that were clearly money used to manufacture. And anyone who's in this room knows that we believe the revolution will never be funded. Right? When it comes, it will come. It will not be funded by Fahamu or anyone else. So part of the criticism I got from the community guys that Troy was talking about was that when these ideas are born, Fahamu fails to provide a platform where they can be free thinking. So for instance, when we fail to provide that space or the input, they are forced to work with a Boniface, for instance, who will in effect force them to do, I don't know if force is the right word, but You get what I'm trying to say, right?
Works in
If
a
they had,
different way.
yeah, works in a different way. So if Fahamu, for instance, instead of taking a back seat, was able to provide space so that in an open space where someone can critique some things without feeling like, oh, it wasn't my idea, kind of thing. So generally, we have failed to capitalize on some key moments. As an advocacy organization, we've failed to feed on the fire that some of our communities have and build it to a much more effective, progressive thing. So maybe that's something. It should never be us coming up with. I'm not saying come up with the ideas. I'm just saying support them so that they do not have to go to other alternatives. By support, I don't mean money. So that they don't have to go to the alternative, which might not necessarily be. Yes.
On this, I think for before the election and during the election and after, there is a team of civil society which had almost hijacked the voices
Yes.
of every other civil society, and there is funding for that. And the problem of this visibility always comes with money.
Yes.
So you buy airtime, you produce T-shirt, plug and everything. So this team of civil society, before, during everything, they were very vocal. TI, OSI, Africa, they were visible everywhere. And even for this demonstration, they were very at the top.
Yes.
To pay journalists to produce all the material. So it was really almost they haven't taken over. But I think because other people, people were tweeting saying all this rule, other one will say, okay, some Kenyans are seeing the other side. Where did this money come from?
Yes.
To buy all these pigs and
Yes.
bring them, just leave them. They are expensive.
Yeah.
How did you manage to hire that? So there was money involved in that.
And we are complaining about money.
Money.
Yes.
And the one who has money dictate what they want to do in that campaign. So OSI and TI, they were doing as in that thing. But I think from on what you say, like, is there another way that the same discussion can be kept on? Like people in their meeting, I like the Kenyan churches because politics is where you chat or the funeral. That you forget whatever you're talking about, the church or funeral, you just, probably, is there other moments that this discussion can keep on Hamazuka? If you go in your other meeting, how can you combine with that? And then in that case, we will not have been seen as some money came from heaven, you pumping
Yes.
people together. It will appear as part of what we are doing. For example, the land issue. When we talk about this before, part of injustices, this someone can also raise that, and people when they are conscious about that, they can keep on talking. But that was a very expensive exercise. That's Fahamu could not have afforded.
I think moving forward, as we are thinking about now the next meeting that we'll have, those are some short-term and medium-term things that we can be able to do. I have a proposal that maybe in every key event or moment, I think we need to sit back and reflect, debrief. We participated in that and did, but how did we strengthen, nurture the movements for social justice, in which farmers is a core. I mean, that's our core business. We exist to do that. So I think it's healthy to discuss about what happened and what beyond the side shows. Are we able to be part of a movement? And then also discuss things around resources, violence in organizing or collective action. So for us as Fahamu, the space we provide is to invite movement, to discuss those things broadly. And then how do we amplify the voices of people as opposed to maybe organizations, etc. Maybe it could be our challenge in the next coming weeks.
Thank you, Tetezi team. Now, moving to the second pillar, which is Adilisha. So the same process of Tetezi have. Maybe Catherine should start because George is taking.
I'll start with the first question. How do you think change happens through Fahamu's interventions? I think the first one is creating some form of linkage with already existing networks that it has to their constituents. I'll give an example where we have probably worked with the Kenya Human Rights Commission on a certain project in the past, and then when we come now to dealing with, let's say, the rights of the sex workers, or we have one of them who's arrested, we create that linkage, linking them to KHRC because we have worked with them in the past. I think that's one of the ways in which Fahamu is bringing change to communities. The other one has been Pambazuka. I've been reading a lot of their articles, and they are very thought-provoking, which leads to discussion and a lot of debates on social media on what people think should be done on certain issues and how leadership should be transformational in the different levels of government. And I think that's also very positive change because it opens people's minds to all sorts of thinking from the different quarters. What inspires me while working with Fahamu? The first one, I've written notes. I think the first one is the work that Fahamu is committed to, social justice, which is an area I'm very passionate about as an activist. Inspires me to wake up every morning and come to work because I know what I am doing at Fahamu is impacting on a certain community. It's that alone is inspiring to me. The dedication by staff, all of us, to our different programs also inspires me a lot, especially when we have those open discussions from our sitting positions about the different ideas and programs and how to be more effective. And we all changia. When Patita sent the brochure on the PB and we were all, giving our input, that is also very encouraging because it shows how we work together as a family. Then I think, this is I think the way we relate as staff is very friendly because I am free to approach my colleague and ask, for example, I'm having problems doing this, how do you think I should, address it? Do you think I'm using the right approach? I think that also inspires me to work because I do not feel like someone probably feels threatened that I know something they don't, and I don't also feel threatened that they know something I don't, because we are learning from one another. Fahamu's overall achievement, I'll give probably generally or as relates to the SWLI. The fact that it develops, or the staff develop programs that touch on issues affecting society in general, and the fact that through those programs we get to work together with the communities, I think is a major achievement for Fahamu, because if we would not be here were it not for the specific programs each one of us is running, and each one of them touches directly on the work community is doing and directly on social justice. So I think that's a plus for Fahamu in terms of achievement. A program achievement, SWLI, I think the first one that has been very positive was the fact that when we started, there was a lot of political tension within organizations and people not having trust in certain individuals that have previously worked with them. And we have changed all that, and we have come to a place where we have agreed that we are all working towards a common goal, therefore we need to also stand together. So for me, I think it was very positive, especially in Tanzania, to see how, to start with, they had no confidence in one of the resource persons, but when we started doing the selection process, they were still willing to work with that person. So that showed they are looking beyond the personal and looking at how much they're going to achieve by having her on the team, because I believe, or we believe, she's very qualified
to be a facilitator for that session. Then some of the programs the sex worker organizations are doing in those respective countries are in one way or another touching on to the sex worker leadership initiative, which makes it easier to build up on what they are already doing in their countries. That to me is an achievement. I participated in a safe abortion workshop on the 7th and 8th of May, and it was very interesting to see how interconnected the sexual rights are related to the sex worker leadership initiative. And we are looking at ways in which we can bring up that same discussion to just pass on some of what I learned from it, because I believe sex workers also have their rights violated, they are sexually abused, they get pregnant accidentally, and yeah, it would be good to bring that debate to that platform to get to know what are some of the ways they seek to address unwanted pregnancies, especially when dealing with their clients. That is a program achievement. Individual achievement, within the few months I've been here, I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot of experience, and especially from engaging with the community on the ground. As Patita said, a lot of my work has impact when I am with them on the ground, in their offices, visiting them. I feel it makes more impact because they see that Fahamu cares. Fahamu cares about their welfare. Therefore, we take it upon ourselves to go to where they are and get to know what situations or what is happening with their organizations. Then I have gotten a lot of proposal ideas that we could put forward in terms of putting up a good proposal for funding as soon as we begin finalizing the sex worker leadership initiative. There are lots of other ideas that have also been brought up by the sex worker activists themselves that Fahamu could build up on to seek funding to continue strengthening sex worker movements in Africa. On Friday, I was challenged to take up being a moderator for a panel for a dialogue at City Hall for the International Day Against Homophobia. And it was interesting that I was not prepared to do that, and I was not even given 10 minutes to prepare. The people were seated and waiting to begin, and then one of the panelists, Lorna Diaz, pulled out, unfortunately. So they had to quickly get someone to do that, and I was picked up on to take up that activity. I think the beauty of that was, one, I never knew I could moderate a panel. Secondly, how fast I responded by just creating things on my mind and keeping the audiences thinking and provoking them to ask very relevant questions to what we were discussing regarding hate crime in Kenya. Then after that, I was approached by very many of the partners that were in the meeting. For example, the French, the Kenyan, the French ambassador to Kenya was very impressed and came forward to, ask where I worked and what I do, and wanting to just directly engage. And at some point also mentioned that the French embassy was, would be calling out for applications for programs on hate crime. Also, the other institution that came forward was the Heinrich Böll Foundation, which I have worked with. Heinrich Böll, yeah. We've worked with them in the past. I participated in an exchange program to Berlin last year, and I wasn't aware that they were also part of the audience. So they came after that, and I informed them I'm now working for Fahamu, and the lady said that she would like us to have a sitting now as Fahamu and HBF to see what kind of interventions we could have as regards hate crimes and the MAPs, the most at-risk populations in Kenya. So that for me was an individual achievement. And besides that, of course, I didn't expect any money, but I was paid. I was paid some little something for the 1 hour that I was a moderator. So of course that was an additional points.
That belongs to my pocket.
So and I would attribute all that to being at Fahamu, because I have really learned a lot. I have sought to read more to get to understand what is actually happening throughout the world. Lessons learned. I'll start with the challenges and then I address the lessons. A lot of the challenges have been administrative stuff, but I won't mention it. I'll just dwell on one or two. One was when I started dealing with these people. This is just a unique group of people. I noticed that they wanted to dictate on how the program should be run, or how, you're not supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that. So for me, after talking to George and Winnie, I realized that I also have to maintain a stand of the 2 F's, being friendly and also being very firm, to stick to what the proposal says. So in that essence, I relate the proposal to my Bible, because that is what I follow in implementing the program. So in as much as we laugh, and in as much as they want to make their situation look so oishe, then at the end of the day, I have a mandate to fulfill as a program coordinator. So then, striking that balance is a lesson learned for me. The other one, the greatest challenge, has been the varying political situations in the different countries. They've either speeded up the process or totally slowed it down to a very frustrating point. But I have learned to keep my cool, to maintain my cool, and sustaining a balance to avoid lagging behind. For example, Namibia, things are very slow. Those people either go to the office once a week or not at all. So, and when they say we are going to do this, when I'm supposed to make the follow-up call, nothing has been done. They haven't relayed the message to the others. Emails go months before they are replied to. So this lags behind the work that the Ugandans, the Tanzanians are doing, and they're very, they're the people who tell me, we need a quick Skype meeting. Even when I'm at home on a Saturday, they are the ones who want to have a Skype meeting to just ask a question, which I find very encouraging. But in a country now like Namibia, where nothing is totally happening, and I feel like it's slowing them down. So for that, I am making them realize how important this is for their movement, because it will not benefit me as a program coordinator, but it directly benefits them as individual activists and organizations. So if they would want to slow it down, it is them who will suffer. Fahamu is just creating that stepping stone for them to become stronger movements. So then it's constantly reminding them that that work is going to benefit them first and foremost. So we're still going on with that. Was there another question? Opportunities that must be built up on. One is the mapping out of the sex worker movements worldwide to identify, track progress, the challenges. It would be very interesting to come up with similar maps of the world that show where sex work, let's say, is legalized, and living from proceeds of sex work is still criminalized, such things. I think it will help us map out our work in terms of programs or the projects we should learn, learning best practices from the countries that are doing well. I know India is not badly off, so sharing best practices or learning from such countries where there's some progress, and I think Nepal also. Then having exchanges with those countries where there's some progress in terms of sex worker rights. Then generally integrating SRHR, sexual and reproductive health rights of sex workers. We may want to broaden that and make it for women in general, and expand to countries beyond the ones we are working with, or just to start with the ones we are working with. Issues such as safe abortion, mainstreaming them especially with the farmers, the women farmers. Besides farming, I'm sure they're experiencing other challenges back home. They are challenging patriarchy and oppression by the patriarchal systems we have, and how they seek to address that, how they deal with unwanted pregnancies. Let's say if they don't use condoms, how do they counter those challenges? Then the fact that governments are very much willing to promote or encourage. Promote sounds bad. Encourage family planning as opposed to addressing or seeking ways in which we can reduce on the unwanted pregnancies, which is more costly to governments. So yeah, it would be possible to also explore working with these communities and encouraging governments especially to use a bottoms-up approach to also avoid spending too much. Yeah, I think that's it.
Impact.
The impact, I'll be honest, right now we are still rolling out, but I'll use one very funny one. The increase of Skype meetings from one or from nothing to close to 3, 4, 5, and they are being called upon by the activists, not by me. That shows people are really interested and they are looking forward to the beginning of the rollout of the project. And it encourages me every day to always reach out to them and find out whether they are facing any challenges. Yeah. And then emails, especially from Tanzania, Uganda. Uganda has already finalized on the selection process, and Salome is doing a wonderful job because she's coordinating. In Zimbabwe, Sean is coordinating her team to wind up the selection. So the fact that they are so committed to doing that, even without me pushing them, shows their interest in participating in Swadi.
Thank you, Patrick.
Right. Starting with the theory of change, and this is something also you learned in school, and there are all sorts of theory of change. You start in the annual stage when you're young and when you grow up, and then I decided to look up, what theory of change really means. And there are so many readings, including what George sent. I read until page 1. But but the point is until all the quotes by Hippocrates.
Heraclitus.
Last page going up.
The quotes from Hippocrates or those Greek academicians and philosophers. But something else I read somewhere that says a theory of change could simply be linked to a roadmap. You can't know where you're going, if you don't, or rather you'll never get to a destination if you don't know how to get there. So if there are signs on the road, you can't get to Nyeri if you've never been there before without reading the road signs that the Chinese have been so kind and gracious to put along our roads. And that made me think, and with all the theories of change, because we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about providing our constituents with a platform in which to engage and share and connect. And linking that to roadmap, I thought, Fahamu could be a roadmap towards consciousness, whether it's social consciousness, political consciousness, awareness, words we don't like to use because it becomes so generic. It's like dispensing drugs. But I would think of ourselves, our theory of change is to be the roadmap towards consciousness. And this is related not to our own thinking or, which would be considered compass, but from all the engagements we've had with the community and what we think that they are gearing towards, and we are helping them as well as learning to get there. So however you want to phrase the consciousness, I think that putting those signs along the road for us and for other communities who are taking this, who are building their movements to wherever level that they want to, I think that is what, we are all about. And the signs on the road as a roadmap is not just, like what Professor said, how do we foster that posterity? We are no longer here, we've all left. So if a whole new batch was to come into Fahamu, and then they say, what is Fahamu's theory of change? Will they start from scratch, or will they borrow from what this team has been able to gather and build upon those signs and upon those, So what inspires me while working from Fahamu? We and I have the oldest here.
Yeah.
These inspirations have been changing the political life. But the biggest inspiration is working with people who are passionate about what they do and who are not afraid, from all our numerous noise-making sessions, and then we say, hey, why don't we do this? And we do it. I don't know how many organizations have that fluidity to say, let's do it without it having been approved by by the time it gets to you, it's changed the tone, it's changed the language. It's not what it was meant to be. And I love that we're a small team. We're not other organizations that have 5,000 employees. You barely know what your colleague does. So I think also the closeness that we have as a small family, even, not talking about the capacity in terms that we lack, that smallness of our family enables us to talk like a family. When you talk with people you're not afraid to say what you want and what you're thinking. So for me, that's the major thing that inspires me to work with Fahamu, because I know I can have an idea. I saw it yesterday and said, I wonder what I will think. So that particular kind of environment is very engaging and it's very growth. Building, if you can put it that way. So achievement, I think, so George mentioned, I talk about a bit of the fellowship which we had, and my view of the fellowship is the current cohort and a bit of lessons from what I knew when I was still in admin with the previous branch. So Fahamu's overall achievement, program-wise, in relation to the fellowship, would be that we were able to create another cohort. That the program didn't end with the last one, even with all the lessons and all the mistakes that we did and learned along the way. So I think it's a good thing that Forward saw this opportunity and said, why don't you continue it? But also for us as Fahamu to say, what, it wasn't enough. There are all these bunch of activists and young people who need to be encouraged, who need to grow, who need to be put in an incubator, where Paul said, and the mayai yakiza, so to put it, when the chicks have hatched, so that's the realization. So fellowship-wise, I think that's a great achievement, and I hope we'll continue to do so. But also, I think Fahamu's overall achievement that we've been talking about how we're able to put thoughts into reality, realization of thoughts into programs, that we're still able to maintain that we haven't been turned into a civil society organization. Actually, I was thinking about when we say we are a CSO, we are an NGO. I think we should classify ourselves as an NBO, a movement building organization.
Nice, I know. NBO.
Yeah, so this CSO, NGO, there's so many terms that people associate even CSOs with, and the bad cred and reputation that CSOs have and NGOs. You say one thing and then you're busy drinking beer on the other end. So I think it's about time we said who we are, and that's exactly who we are. it shows in our actions, and perhaps that will help other movements even when we're trying to chat and build these connections, so that when we're talking about creating this link with someone in Bolivia, they know we're not just a regular CSO who are governed by what. Perhaps if it means changing our registration process, maybe to a movement building, or maybe be classified more as a movement and not exactly as an NGO. Yeah, I mean, okay, fine, I know that. But that's just, yeah, but that's just, okay, that's just ETC, but, when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, that is exactly what we do. And it's good to categorize ourselves and that, and know that is where our niche is, and this is where we want to be. Program achievements. Fellowship. Currently, we have a cadre of 8 fellows, and the difference between these guys and the last bunch is that they are all now drawn from different corners of the country, which I think is a big achievement. It's something we've been talking about, and not just having them come from Nairobi County. So still trying to work out the dynamics, because we are now at the halfway mark, and I think we're doing okay. But I think having and balanced gender-wise. So we have 4 ladies and we have 4 gentlemen. So I think that is a serious program achievement. Another program achievement is looking at it in terms of the learning process. There's more incorporated in terms of learning. So we are not just looking at because I think our fellowships are unique in terms of it's not school. You're not going to learn a lot of lecture and a video information, and then after that you get your degree or diploma, whatever it is. It's about raising that consciousness, especially for people who are trying to do it, but they don't have the skills to do it, to achieve or rather to make a bigger impact. I think the achievement we also had last time was attending the Nyerere Festival. Personally, I thought, it was I was looking for a big word, but this sitting where you have phenomenon. That wasn't the word I was looking for. Yeah, so this, they call it kongamano. So this sitting where you have all these people with these rich and vast experiences who are willing to come together and sit and talk about Pan-Africanism, because it's something we talk about. It's one of our, guiding values, our guiding missions. But it was really nice to actually sit and listen to people who have had these experiences, who have a history which you can, learn from, because it's not in our textbooks. I mean, textbooks, it's mentioned Pan-Africanism, founding fathers, Nkrumah, Nyerere. I was telling someone we did all these things in school, but you don't really think about it. You understand? You don't connect, because if you're asking history, so the founding father of Nkrumah, founding father of Tanzania, founding father of Kenya, founding father. So you can mention them, but there's no your analysis, behind why there is these founding fathers and why they are held to such high esteem in their country. So, and I think it was the same for the fellows, because they haven't been exposed. I mean, for them to be exposed to such type of setting, because you're trying not only to raise and build their skills, but also trying to raise consciousness in them, to understand what this Pan-Africanism means. And Pan-Africanism in terms of when you go to your community like Komboka, if somebody in your community asks you about Pan-Africanism and say something about Nyerere and why Tanzanians and other people revere Nyerere as one of the leading fathers on Pan-Africanism and what it constitutes. So honestly, there are some challenges there, of course. There are those who took up that task and who are really there to learn. Maybe others not so much, but take the good and the bad. Yeah. But I think, and as we mentioned earlier, during a past meeting, that this needs to be something that should be calendarized. Not even just for the fellows, perhaps even for the Fahamu team. We keep talking about Pan-Africanism, So how cool would it be if all of us were to attend an Irari festival and have that cultural exchange? So it's not just about learning for fellows and trainees and our our constituents in the movement, but also ourselves. Kazi kwetu. Individual achievement. Transition from admin to Adilisha. I think that's a big achievement personally. I'm learning a lot, so George will fill in all those gaps I have left. And hopefully continue to learn. I know I'm sure I've forgotten many jobs. Not to the machimos nimewacha. So currently lessons we have drawn. Oof. Alright, this began at the induction and latching on to what Kat said, there needs to be a firmness between friendly and you need to be firm between friendly and firm, because sometimes you might find that some of these guys test your patience in what they can do, because they feel they are bringing something to you, so you need them more than they need you. So creating that balance between telling them this is a mutual exchange, of course. We are learning from you, and definitely there's some things you could learn from Fahamu. So perhaps that drawing that line where they say, you should be doing, if you talk to movements, they can, like you were saying, I'm sure they can write books on what Fahamu should be doing, which is a good thing. I mean, it means that they are comfortable enough to critique and to say exactly what they think. But also, as Fahamu, we need to be firm in terms of, okay, fine, we will take the critique as it's meant to be, but where do our commitments and where do our roles lie? Because if I think Sulibindra said something about, if you're doing everything and nobody actually says about it, you're doing it wrong. There has to be a critique somewhere. You can't be doing everything right. But also, in terms of firmness, we need to know where to draw the line, because I'm sure they'd want us to do a lot of things, and which I'm sure if we had the capacity we'd be able to do. But sometimes there's also that tightrope walk where there's some things that we want to do and we can't, or sometimes they're pushing you in a direction and you think we can't do it, and balancing that and telling them it's not that we don't want to, perhaps at a later date or at a later, something like that. That's one of the lessons. Programmatically, one of the lessons that we're learning is the what do you call it? These are young activists we're trying to nurture, and there's a lot for them to learn, and also there's a lot of them for them to share with us. So it's a great learning experience for both of us. But I think one of the lessons which is drawn from a challenge is the encouraging them to be vocal, especially when it comes to taking to task or asking very relevant questions. Case in point, sometimes we'd have one of our facilitators say something, and perhaps maybe it's the language, or maybe it's how the particular word has been used in a particular framework. Then nobody says anything after that. The point is, I can't prod you to ask. I might not know what it means, or probably I do, but I think there's this need that we need to have to prod them to ask. Because sometimes, as much as you want to teach, there's some words you cannot avoid using. We try to, because we are CSO, moving to a new. There's some words there's some words we try to use and try to tone them down so that the community can understand, but sometimes you can't avoid them, especially when raising things like political consciousness. There's some words which you can try to tone down, but the point of the experience usually is there's a need to push for them to ask. and which I feel, you know, that if we continue doing, then the experience is become useless for them, because I can't push you to ask. You have to have that particular awareness in you to say, okay, fine. So what did you mean in that particular context? So I think that is some of the challenges we have, and bringing out that vocality in some of the activists who probably are not so, they're not the Gashekis and the Kamodos of this world, but trying to bring that out of them, to tell them, you know, this is you, this process is only for 10 months. After that, there's this particular process that you go back to your community. So what are you taking back? So perhaps those are some of the challenges that lead to lessons. We are currently working on them since the program is ongoing. So perhaps this is something we can be doing after every debriefing, like George mentioned. Perhaps just come up with, you know, when we sit and talk and perhaps, oh yeah, in the program achievement, I forgot to mention that we are trying to encourage readership of the fellows, so having them read our books and articles along so many issues, and fine, the language is academic, what as is usual with books and articles, but the main aim of this particular process is to encourage the sort of the behavior of questioning, not just accepting. You know, you read the paper, do you believe everything that is written in the Nation? Or do you have the sort of mechanism in your head to say, okay, fine, somebody has written this, but I have the inbuilt capacity to actually question, you know, first and foremost, if it's, and even if it's not the truth, I have my own ways of forming my own opinions, gathered from what has been written. So we are trying to encourage that. We'll let you know how it goes. But that is the sort of consciousness we are trying to raise, because we told them, as much as you're always on the ground, there's some things you can't avoid reading. And if you don't even read the newspaper, let's not even talk about what Road News and the other books that we have. You know, how are you going to be engaging with issues on the ground when you're not aware of what is happening? So that was one of the program achievements. Opportunities that exist that must be built on. Definitely in terms of the fellowships, there are plenty of opportunities, because these are people who work in different movements, who are located, you know, from, you know, all corners of the country, and the opportunity actually is in connecting with their movements, you know, to work with the programs. For example, it's not a movement in the fellowship, but I remember the contact that George gave you from Haki. There were two of them, but that sort of interconnectivity, you know, linking you, because they do the same work and we feel they would benefit from the PB impact. So that is, I think that is the opportunity we have with this particular movement. They're different. Actually, Paul actually works with one of our fellows in the movement because they work on land. He's one of their, so those sort of exchanges and opportunities are the ones that we should build upon. We have those linkages with the former fellows, where someone like Dan Caleb feels free to have the meeting and involve us to some level in whatever it is that they're doing. So I think those opportunities, creating those contacts, you know, helps in the mapping, helps in the creating a database for all the people that we work with, and it definitely gives us more openings towards communities that we probably wouldn't be able to access. Some of the opportunities also with the fellowship, during the festival, for example, I met with a lady from Canada, and she works with, she works in an organization that mentors students and young activists who are from an African descent, not necessarily from Africa, but from the Caribbean. And so they have this organization that basically is working with I think they call themselves something to do with the diaspora, who are looking to create linkages with movements in Africa. So once and the oddest thing was that when we went at the festival, we were the only ones. I mean, guys, we were hearing about, oh yeah, there's some young activists from Nairobi. So at some point I asked myself, how many activists don't attend these sessions? I think they go as individuals who are known already, but there are no groups of young activists, just who are coming to learn. So I think bringing like 8 of them together in one particular setting created a buzz and created a lot of interest. So this lady had actually she overheard Kwamboka talking in the queue for food. And Kwamboka is loud, so she was like, okay. So she sat down next to me and was just asking what we do, because she was like, they're really trying to penetrate. And they're really trying to form movement linkages with young activists working in Kenya. They have some that they said apparently in Tanzania there are not so many. They haven't had that particular opportunity because this particular lady has lived in Tanzania for a long time. So they're looking to create networks and looking to create that space by engaging with activists from and seeing as we had 8 young activists there, she thought that was a perfect introduction ground. So she got my contacts. She got contacts for at least 2 or 3 of the fellows, if I recall correctly. So I hope this is something that will come to fruition, because we've been talking about creating linkages with the diaspora, and perhaps this is one of the ways to do it. And seeking to learn from each other, because they were saying, there's some things that they do there perhaps would be of benefit to movements here and activists and vice versa. So those are the sort of opportunities. Also at Delisha was, and perhaps George would mention it, he just mentioned the Africa-centered advocacy course, and I just remembered our courses, which nobody does. And as much as I don't know how he does, look at George, in shock. Nobody does in terms of, everyone who asks for a course asks for the old, the kawaida, IMRs and fundraising and the usual. And we still get, Hillary and I still get queries about such courses. But the thing I have noticed the most with people who send me such emails, they always ask for a residential type of course. No, yeah, people are no longer willing to do online, especially those based here. And even if not, some of them are willing to take that time off and say, if it's a 5-day or 3-day course, I will make the time to do it. So it got me thinking, and I said, done fundraising, IMR, these are outdated courses, they haven't been reviewed or revised, but yet we have the SCS, we have the movement building. So the opportunity there was like, so how do we start introducing these courses? Because of course something like ACA has to be, the courses that we have, the ones that we engage consultants to revise and to come up with, are of course better placed to be residential courses. It's more interactive. It might be a bit more expensive, but for movements and for other organizations here that we're trying to grow and build and trying to connect with, this is the perfect opportunity actually, because as much as we're talking about all these things and raising consciousness, but also part of training, Adilisha is about information sharing, knowledge, and also encouraging training. So even if not for our movements, perhaps when we are better financial capacity, but I think it's something that would be really important, because how do you have a person movement building and we haven't even done it yet? And I think it would be really important to actually capitalize on that particular event. Sorry, I didn't mean it was irrelevant. I just meant everyone just talks about, I want to do fundraising, I want to do introduction to human rights. And we keep saying these courses are obsolete. So how, and to take advantage of everyone who keeps asking, is it residential? All of them ask me if it's residential. So I have to tell them, no, currently we don't have anything. So I revert them back to Hillary and tell them, yeah, there's an online one if you're interested and things like that. So perhaps just capitalizing on that particular, because people are interested. So we're about taking that opportunity to actually focus on the process that, talk about movement building and what we're about.